consensus and actually, stop talking about it and actually have an action plan. So, and thank you, Stockholm. We understand we're the last thing between you and a reception, but we're going to try and elicit some feedback from you. That's why we called it a workshop. So get ready to participate. And so this is our title. So the idea, I kind of said, gosh, what we need is a better process for improving quality than the current, let's just delete everything that isn't quality. So quality circles, I'm going to talk about that for a couple of slides, and then I'm going to give it over to my colleague here, and we'll talk about, let's document the process of inputting new people on Wikidata, and we'll use that as a kind of test of the concept too. So hopefully, coming away from here, you'll understand a little about quality processes, and then you'll look a little at Wikidata and input to Wikidata. Everybody wants to know how to do that. So, okay, so quality circles, and there is an article, it's not very good, but this is kind of some of the things that you do to form a quality circle. So the idea is, hey, we have a quality problem, let's form a team, and then we'll work the problem. Historically, it's been considered a fad in the business world because it requires volunteers. So when you're a top-down manager, you don't necessarily want to trust volunteers to actually report to you and stuff. But here's about how you would go about it if you would collect requirements and do all this kind of checklist thing. However, the idea is it's not necessarily a checklist or a sequence. It's supposed to be a circle. So we're going to continuously improve quality, whatever that is. We're going to come to a consensus as to what it is kind of in our circle, and then try to continuously improve it. And so here's an image from Commons, and they changed some of the nomenclature. The main thing is, though, is Plan, Do, Check, Act is historically the business version of that. But the idea is we're reflecting as we go. So we're not just ready, fire, aim, unthinkingly hitting things. We're trying to do some changes. We're seeing what the impact of those changes was, and then we're continuing on. And we're trying to have a cycle. We're not trying to improve things all in one shot, but we're continuously taking small bites at the quality apple. So this is kind of what a quality circle looks like. That was before, is how you form a quality circle. And what do quality circles do? Well, they think about issues like this. So I kind of borrowed this from Lydia Pincher. I wish you'd put this on Commons, but so the idea here is some subtle things about quality and errors, which is make them more visible, actionable. Because we love crowdsourcing, we're going to use crowdsourcing, and then fix sources of errors. So we're not just going to fix symptoms, we're going to try to do an error analysis also. And this is a good kind of action plan for your standard quality circle. And human curation, so that we just kind of duplicative, but hey. And some of this is counterintuitive because historically, we want to hide errors because they make us look bad and stuff. Whereas here we want to elevate errors because then the crowd can see them easier and act on them. Okay, so here, starting in on our workshop, here's our first slide.
So the problem that I chose for us is one that's quite prevalent, missing documentation on Wikidata, specifically for creating new people items. There are thousands of properties on Wikidata, and knowing which ones you're meant to use for which person or which type of person is very confusing and potentially overwhelming. The documentation that we need needs to be aimed at new or inexperienced editors and focus on which statements and which properties we need to use for creating people. On the Etherpad, I have actually put some headers that would be a good starting point for the documentation. You should be able to see all of that. And basically what we need to do is find out which properties and statements we want to be using. We must be using that all people need to have. A additional properties that could be, that should be included. Of course, use of references and qualifiers and identifiers, and how to use example items of different occupations to find which statements we should actually be adding. So,
We can exit out of here.
yeah.
And go to the Etherpad.
So, yeah, there's an Etherpad for this session, which is what they're discussing. It should be linked on the session page if people want to go there.
Okay, so get ready. We're going to ask for your feedback now. So if you can go to the session and click on the small obscure little notes thing in the session, this will take you to the Etherpad right here, and we can edit this all in parallel. And feel free to edit or here and put down your best thoughts.
So the first thing that any human must have on Wikidata is certain statements, and these are statements that, logically speaking, every human being must have. Every human being must have a name, which I think I didn't put on there. They must be an instance of human. They must have a date of birth. Even if we don't know the date of birth, that can be filled in as unknown. And every human has a gender. Then we need to look at which statements humans should have, but maybe we don't have available: place of birth, occupation, image, and whatever else we can think of. Then there are a lot of statements that any human being could have. Thank you. Date of birth, date of death, place of death, manner of death are all death ones, and family. And there is a link there to a query that shows the full list of statements for humans. And then the next stage is to try and find the occupation. And then based on the occupation, we can find a model item which will give us all of the most likely statements that we want to be using for that type of occupation. So for example, the model item for an author is Douglas Adams, and if you look at Douglas Adams' Wikidata item, it's incredibly complete. It has pretty much every statement you would want to have for any sort of author. And then I just sort of added on the end, we probably should talk about the importance of references as well. So that's the outline of what we need to have in the documentation. And
I would just add as a kind of case study that I was recently at a editathon meetup with some librarians, and they were all tasked with bringing a faculty member and then creating a Wikidata item on them, and it got ugly quickly. These are catalogers that are used to, having to have the perfect entry at their cataloging, and so they're not used to the kind of wiki incrementalism. And there were other rocks in the road, I guess, but certain norms that are, the most required instance of human, that's kind of a little out of the ordinary. We take it, Wikidatians take it for granted that we know we have to have an instance of. This is kind of our first broad brush qualifier, but it's not widely understood by newbies. So I would say, yeah, it's good to put that at the top.
So what is the next stage? Should we ask people to start filling out some of these sections?
Yes.
Would you like us to group up a little bit?
Yes. Any questions or comments from anybody? Okay.
I'm just speaking about Wikidata, and one part of this ecosystem is Wikipedia. And what I would like to see is that we help the author in Wikipedia. So when a person should start edit, they can go down to Wikidata and get information. And one way of getting information is to find good articles, recommended articles. And I don't see, now we're getting 40 new properties per week in Wikidata, so it's exploding. and find the grave is one. This source I spoke about last session is another one, which is a good start for writing an article. And I would also like to see that we have properties for that. We have some described by, but we don't have a convention saying that this property should be like you have in an article, recommended reading or something like that.
We have model items for many different things. So for example, we'll go a little bit of circle here.
So what I was saying, share a concept, and maybe that's what you're thinking about. So we do the same, because we are inventing a lot of things in Sweden, and nobody else will do it in the same way.
And if you go to most occupations listed in is occupation. This is Douglas Adams's item, and you can see it's extremely well filled out. Into the grave, father, mother, sibling, spouse, child, native land, occupation. There we go. So if we go to novelist. We should have a model item, but we don't.
So while you look for that, I would say like the objective of this session is to think about how we write documentation for other people, right? For ourselves and for other people. So how we think about documenting processes and how we think about using quality processes to do that. And so I would agree with Magnus's comment. It is confusing. Wikidata properties are incredibly confusing. Like as an example of which ones to use for what item and when, that is something that is super debatable. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this practice is to get us to think about describing that out, right, for ourselves and for others.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
been some development of external tools that are
Right.
more
Right.
just fill in the blank,
Right.
and which require a Wikidata item to be there before you can add fields. So
Right.
it doesn't help you create the initial one though.
So I think it might be helpful if we gathered up a little more closely, maybe, to do this work. We have us work on this project together.
Okay. You want everybody to stand up and stretch?
Maybe. It seems like or, but was there a question? Sorry, I didn't see our hand. No. Okay. Yeah. Do you want people to work together, or?
Sure, let's come together
right.
and maybe brainstorm a little.
Okay. Good. So yes, do stand up, stretch, maybe move up a little bit.
Again, the question general question I would say is, what documentation would you like to see in order to make it easier for you to create new items in Wikidata? That would be, an open-ended one.
Sure. Has anyone created, are people familiar with Wikimedia? This group? Yeah. In the middle? I know you are. Property documentation is the big one for me, Jim. Like how, Laura and I have done quite a bit of work on model items, like for various and sundry types of things, because it's very hard to know what properties to use, especially when there's like two properties that are basically they're sort of the same, but not really the same. Like which one do you use? Which is different from identifiers, but like, if your choices are replaces or follows by, like, when's it appropriate to use which one? And I think usage is a bit inconsistent, right? So that's a good question.
Work in primary topic.
Sorry.
Yeah, there are many such pairs like field of work and primary topic, etc. I also wanted to mention an amazing tool that is weirdly underutilized and under-celebrated, like most of our tools, called Cradle, which is astoundingly simple. It lets you just pick a topic like museums or monuments or historians and describe a set of properties that you would usually like people to populate for that kind of item. And then you can sit a bunch of relative newbies or less experienced people with Wikidata with some reference sources like a biographical dictionary of historians or something like that, and just have them type in to a data entry form, which Cradle gives you, with just those relevant properties. Now this tool, as far as I know, is documented, but kind of a reference document. I don't know if anyone made a nice, I don't know, Medium post or like recipe. Here's how you do a data entry event using Cradle, for example.
Yes. The Smithsonian definitely knows about it and is going to use it. So, I mean, there's appreciation, but yeah, the new user's guide would be really nice.
Yeah, I'm thinking more globally than just suggesting to you guys, obviously. I think the broader community doesn't know this tool exists.
Well, you know, we're going to share a video, so we're going to evangelize, but yeah, and again, it's that tool problem is we create these tools that can do a lot of good work, but how do we socialize use of the
And then we
tool?
don't tell anyone about it.
Right, yeah.
I have a couple of questions or whatever. That is it Credle? How do you spell? Cradle. Okay. Also, you know, lots of times I'll get stymied if I want to put in a property and it doesn't exist, and I don't want to deal with the process of you know, I mean, I wish that was simpler for, like, you know, somebody got an award, but there's no property for that.
Yes, it's true. The property completion, it works sometimes, but you have to know the right sequence to search. So we could use some help there. Yeah.
Yeah, that should definitely be better.
Okay, yeah, so put that in the list. Are there other things? What's tough about making a Wikimedia item?
Oh, I add another one is these weird warning constraint tags that come up. They really turn off newbies. They go, "What did I do wrong?" And then they stop. And we say, "Hey, it's a wiki. Just leave the constraint there. Someone will fix it later." And it's hard for catalogers to get that because they're used to getting blamed when the entry is wrong.
I think that the dates should have a better documentation as well. I usually upload a lot of images to Commons and then to Wikidata, and sometimes I'm not sure how to use the dates. Also, I agree with you about the constraint, and I'm also a little bit more interested now in late schemas, which is something that we haven't talked about a lot.
So schemas.
Yeah. Could you talk more about schemas or ontologies?
Lexemes.
Lexemes.
It's another name, it's different namespace on Wikidata with L's instead of Q's. And yeah, I'm not quite sure how much is on there, but it is growing, I think. Nicholas is doing a lot with that.
I want to say one more thing about constraints.
Yeah, I'll just kind of get next with you guys. It's easier for one person to hold it.
So one easy fix that it seems to me we could do about constraints is when you have that alarming exclamation point and you hover over it or click it right, and you see it says, for example, I don't know, you have someone listed as someone's spouse, and it says, you know, well, that other person should also have should be mutual.
Yeah.
The phrasing of the violated constraint doesn't always immediately suggest, so how do I fix it? Like, what action am I supposed to take? And while, of course, sometimes it's not trivial to decide how to resolve the constraint, if that pop-up, if that piece of information would also say, typical ways to resolve this would be, 1 and 2, already that says, oh, I can just go to that other item and add spouse off, and that's great. So that, and we don't do that. We stop short of providing that little extra step that we could.
So I would say for me, another Wikidata specific problem, but also kind of a general meta Wikimedia problem, just to make this big, is whenever I teach Wikidata to anybody, I mostly teach it to librarians, I have a hard time explaining why it exists, like what it's for, right? And you have pages and pages and pages about like the value of open linked data, and you can make lots of examples, like you can make lots of queries of examples. But so okay, maybe good explanations for particular audiences. I think we often lack context in our documentation. We often just jump right into like, here's how you file an AFD, not like some Wikipedia articles are deleted because they are found to be out of scope, right? Like, we often like skip the big picture part in our documentation, so.
Yeah, we don't really talk about why and wherefore, do we? Although for librarians, it's authority control is a good selling point, isn't it, or not?
Sure. I'm saying in the big picture, it's like it's difficult to talk about Wikidata in particular because we have kept it so loose, like we've kept it open. Wikipedia has a good analog, right? Oh, it's an encyclopedia. Wikidata kind of doesn't have a similar frame of reference that most people are familiar with, even for librarians. So I would add that.
And it's interesting the different philosophy to the data from the average catalog record, which is they tend to be closed and hard to change, and they tend to be open and easy to change. So and they work well together because they go back and forth.
Other people? Problems with creating an item
It only kind of gradually dawned on me that there are two, like, you can either have location or you can have located in the administrative entity or whatever, and I'm like, why do we need two different, like, one of them was like, maybe it was for a government agency or something. Anyway, it just seemed to be too complicated to me to try to make that distinction.
Yes, you're stumbling onto certain community disputes that are resolved by having both. Yes, there's a lot of geo, what location are we talking about going on? And yes, I don't know how we document that for new users because there's a lot of stuff in the weeds there.
Yeah, not at all as far as I remember with that is a special example of the located in. Other things?
Okay. Are we all happy with what we see on the screen? Is that something we can buy off on?
You might make the screen a bit bigger, Sean, so that would be, yeah, super great.
Because the next step would be create a nice page on Wikidata and then call it, intro to creating biographical entries or something.
Okay.
So I guess that's a sign up from everyone that we can actually cut and paste that right there.
Are we happy with this as our documentation for people entries? I don't know how much.
And then we're all going home and working on the action items too.
I mean, it seems like kind of starting before you start adding statements is even just doing the searching to kind of, avoid.
So like, at this point, this is missing kind of the step to check and see if there
there is a person, already, so.
And the old why and wherefore kind of statement, yeah.
One thing I think helps is if we find projects in Wikidata that work with a group of people that has target working with a group of people, so you easier can see them.
Yeah, I do know we were talking in one of the Wikidata meetups about trying to solve that from a more technical issue, where as you start to fill in an item, you will be prompted with possible projects.
Yes.
But that will need technical stuff changing. I do know there's a lot of talk about that because there are a lot of projects, but knowing that the projects are there is the problem. Like with this, where we want to get to with creating the people items is get the basics done, get the sort of obvious things that we can all think of in our head the humans should have. Or it's in the way I see it is there's statements they must have, statements they should have, and statements they could have. And they're generic statements for all human beings. And then we need to go to a model item or a project or something that's got a schema to tell us by the occupation, because for people that's normally where it starts to diverge, what we want to fill in for those people. So I did actually find, here I'm on the occupation of screenwriter, playwright. So this is an occupation that you would add to if the person you were creating was a playwright. And then once you've added it, you can jump to this page and model item, for example, we go and look at William Shakespeare. And then from William Shakespeare, you should see how to correctly create another playwright. So in here should be all of the useful things more relevant to playwrights. Of course, given name, family, and these are all of our generic statements that all humans must, should, or could have. Native languages, there's lots of occupations, and then things like this. Oh, we have a constraint here.
Well, and don't the model items, I mean, this is how all documentation on all Wikimedia projects work, right? Like you look for something that exists already and then you build on it and you copy it. And the model items are supposed to provide a place for that. I mean, to Magnus's point earlier, there's a whole slew of identifiers from catalogs that aren't on our list, like every identifier about people that we can possibly come up with that should be in a item about a person. So, yeah. So we have about 10 minutes to kind of wrap this up, so. Yeah.
Okay, I'd say, any final questions, comments from the audience? Because, I'd say we have an instruction set or some documentation. I put the slides on there if you want to link on them and read them again. And they have some links to where I got my pictures from. Or you can go review Lydia's slides. That slideshow, her quality on Wikipedia is very nice. And final comments, thank you for participating. Hopefully, this wasn't too bad, this quality circle. It's nicer when you have lunch, it's a coffee clutch, and you can actually write and complain and get things done.
So I have a question for you, Jim. Like is what we just did, where we sort of talk about like our issues, our problems, like and brainstorm ideas, is that an example of how you would run a quality circle on a topic like
Yes,
this?
so, I mean, this was kind of a low-key one.
Sure, well, we're all very tired. It's the end of the day, for sure.
When everybody's full of coffee and they just gotten bitten by somebody tweeting something that wasn't quality, well, yeah.
Sure.
then it's a little higher attention.
Sure. And then are there next steps you would recommend sort of?
Yeah, so I would just think about how to build teams. So if you have a problem, think about, instead of trying to be the big man solving a problem, which yes is a guy thing, think about a circle and let's share some of the load and kind of cross-train in our team and see this method and then try and share it with other people. You know, so if you see a problem, try and find other people that agree it's a problem and let's work on it, even incrementally. Even having a problem statement is an improvement. You know, and there's plenty of places on Wiki to go hide stuff, you know, on Meta and have a coffee clash and improve process problems.
And what I like about this approach is I think we're very prone in Wikipedia to, I see a problem, I'm going to sit down for an hour some night and like hack out a specification or hack out a document. And then you have this piece of documentation that has sat there on the wiki sort of untouched and unloved for the last like 10 or 15 years. A lot of our help pages look like this. And I like this like idea of getting people involved to write our documentation in the same way that we would get people involved to write an article, you know. Having many hands and being intentional about it as a process.
I really like your idea with this working together, but I'm trying to scale it up. So I've been trying to do it with the Swedish governments, and that's impossible. You go to people, no, we have some people running around here from the National Archives. They are much more skilled than me and have the old Swedish administrations and so on. So they maybe have another granularity, but do you have any advice, good examples where we can see, if we get something? I've been in contact with 15 governments and people get scared when people from Wikidata comes and so on. And we need to, if someone succeeds, we need to have a showcase or something like that.
Yes, for the Wikipedians, it's more a Wikipedia answer, as we had this tea house thing on English Wikipedia that kind of followed this model, and it's been around for...
But that's inside Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's inside Wikipedia.
I would like to have the government people.
Well, yes, so the Japanese, so this method, the Japanese kind of used back in the 80s and 90s, so, you know, we have this Deming Award and all that stuff that was awarded for companies that did this. And then the American version was trying to do the Baldrige Award, and it's seen as a kind of fatty thing. But so there are a bunch of star examples for each of those awards if you wanted to go out and look.
But in Sweden they are good on people are giving away pictures on commons and so on. But when you start speaking about domains and linked data or Wikidata, it's starting getting rather complex. So
yes.
You have to find a good organization, you have to find the correct people, and you have to not scare them.
Yeah, we've found some interest among librarians. So if you had some national librarians and catalogers, I would go talk to them and maybe see about building links with them and then kind of evangelize there.
Yeah.
Archivists are a little behind on Wikipedia, I think. They're more interested in commons. Although, see, you're gonna pull them in with linked data on commons, structured data on commons.
Yeah.
So they're gonna end up there anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a little roundabout. But yeah, I'd say we've seen a lot of interest from just regular librarians in the United States. And old Andrew Lee's been giving his presentation at Smithsonian Library of Congress for a year or two now, and it's always packed. People are excited, so that I would try there first, and then try and build it up.
Good.
Just to summarize on where we got with your circle, so we basically did planning, didn't we? Right, and the next stage would be to take what we've planned and get it up onto an actual documentation page, and then we check, we change, we plan, and we carry on.
Right.
So we got.
So yeah, we should be able to make a page on Wikidata, maybe announce it on Project Chat, and then start including it in our editathons and meetups for newbies of editing, yeah.
Great. All right, well, thank you guys. And thank you all for sticking through to the very end of the day, even though it's only mid-afternoon. I know, this has been at Wikimedia for a week. There is actually I was wrong, there's a break now, a break until 4, I believe. And then we will all go into Alma Magna for the closing ceremony. So stretch, get a coffee, take a break, and I will see you in the big hall shortly. Thanks.
Thank you. That was very nice. Cool. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for being us.
Very, very into the day. A little under the time, but thank you.
That's fine.
Yes, hello. You are in Israel.
Yes.
Thanks for coming in last minute.
Yeah,
No, I know, I
and
appreciate
yes, she's here.
She's here, yes. She just joined our board of trustees.
Yeah, she had a telephone interview with me. Somewhat, so maybe I should say. But you are not the person doing on the Wikimedia query.
I am.
Oh, yeah.
I make the long video tutorials.
Yeah, but are you the
No, I'm not the developer of Wikimedia.
No, the query. There is stuff
For the sake of
Adam Sorda. He works for Wikimedia Charter. No, I'm not on the development team.
I've seen your name.
Yeah, I do a lot of Sparkle and I teach Sparkle.
I thought you were the same.
What do you mean?
I've seen a lot of videos, I think, of you.
Yeah.
You are
That's me.
traveling like this.
Yes, that's me. I am the same person.
But you are not really core development.
No, I'm teaching people to
I
use
understand,
Sparkle.
but I have a problem. When they changed the query, the results, number of results was gone. And the bug and it was
All right.
Then it was bad that we met, and then I was even more impressed by you. But thanks for the video. What have you learned about explaining Wikidata?
Well, I have learned, for example, to start with the why. That's why my introduction to Wikidata doesn't start with showing Wikidata. First, it starts with what problem does Wikidata exist to solve? Why are we, why should we care about
the problem or show something sexy?
No, start with the problem. My introduction is aimed at the people. People who are already into phrenology stuff. Already is the answer to the question, why should we care about this new thing?
Yeah.
If I talk to people like that,